The alien medical bay went silent when Corwin Ash poured whiskey into his own open wound. Not because the medicine was dangerous. Because, according to every medical rule in the galaxy, it should have killed him. "Stop!" Physician Salith shouted. Corwin looked at her. Then he looked at the amber liquid running down his bleeding arm. "It's fine." Salith stared at him in horror. "That substance is classified as a tissue irritant." "It's whiskey." "That does not make it better." Corwin shrugged. "It kills germs." Behind him, his partner Desmond opened a medical kit. "You want the cheap stuff or the good stuff?" Corwin glanced at the bottle. "Cheap. I'm not wasting good whiskey on a 6-centimeter cut." The two junior alien medics looked like they were about to faint. Salith could not understand what she was seeing. She had treated soldiers with broken bones, plasma burns, radiation poisoning, and even species whose blood became toxic when exposed to oxygen. But never had she seen a patient deliberately pour a chemical compound into an open wound and then complain that the bandage was too tight. "You humans are insane," she whispered. Corwin smiled. "People have been saying that for centuries." The wound was wrapped. The alarms stopped. Salith expected complications. There were none. Within hours, the bleeding had stopped. By the next morning, the wound was already closing. Salith watched the healing scan 3 times. It should not be possible. Desmond leaned against the doorway. Humans are very good at surviving things that should not be possible. Salith studied Corwin carefully. "Why?" Corwin looked confused. "Why what? Why does your species tolerate pain?" Corwin thought for a moment. "We don't like pain. But you accept it. Sometimes. That makes no sense." Corwin smiled. "You'll understand eventually." He was right. But neither of them knew how soon that understanding would become necessary. 3 days later, Varen Outpost received a distress signal. A mining colony on the other side of the moon had gone silent. The station administrator immediately sent a medical team. Salith volunteered. Corwin and Desmond went with her. When they arrived, the colony looked abandoned. Doors were open. Machines were still running. Meals were sitting untouched. Then Salith found the first body. An alien miner lay beside a control panel. No wounds. No blood. No visible injury. But his nervous system had completely shut down. Salith scanned him. Her face changed. "This is impossible." Corwin looked at the screen. "What?" "The cells are receiving false pain signals." Desmond frowned. "Meaning?" "The brain believes the body is being destroyed." Corwin looked around. "How many people?" 216. "And how many are alive?" Salith checked the scanner. 38. The silence became heavy. Then one of the surviving miners suddenly screamed. He grabbed his chest. Salith rushed toward him. "Hold him!" 2 medics restrained the miner. His body was shaking violently. Salith injected a neural stabilizer. Nothing happened. His brain activity continued to rise. "He's dying," she said. Corwin looked at the monitors. "No." Salith turned. "What?" "He's not dying." Corwin pointed at the screen. "His body is trying to protect him." Salith stared. The human continued. "Your medicine is telling his nervous system to stop sending pain." "Yes. But the signal isn't the disease." Corwin pointed toward the patient's brain. "The signal is the alarm." Salith's eyes widened. "You think the pain is warning us?" "Exactly." Corwin looked at the colony. "What caused it?" Before Salith could answer, every light in the building turned red. A warning appeared on the wall. "Contamination detected." Then another message appeared. "Airborne organism released." Desmond looked at Corwin. "How bad?" Corwin watched the ventilation system. "Very." Salith's face became pale. "We need to leave." Corwin shook his head. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because there are 38 people alive in here." Salith stared at him. "You cannot save them all." Corwin picked up his medical bag. Maybe not. He looked toward the infected miners. But I'm going to try. Then the colony doors locked. Something had taken control of the station. And whatever had caused the outbreak was still inside with them. The colony doors refused every command. Salith tried her medical override. Nothing. Desmond tried the emergency controls. Nothing. Corwin simply walked to the wall and began removing a panel. Salith stared. What are you doing? Fixing it. You are not an engineer. No. Then why are you touching the control system? Because engineers aren't here. He pulled 2 wires apart. The lights went out. Everyone froze. Then the emergency doors opened. Desmond smiled. Sometimes I forget how much trouble you cause. Corwin looked at him. Sometimes trouble is useful. They moved the survivors toward the transport ship. But halfway there, one of the miners collapsed. Salith scanned him. The infection has reached his brain. Corwin looked at the monitor. The man's pain level was extreme. Salith prepared another neural suppressant. Corwin stopped her hand. Don't. She stared at him. His pain is killing him. No. Corwin pointed at the scan. His pain is showing us where the infection is moving. Salith slowly lowered the injector. Corwin looked at the man's brain activity. Every time the pain spikes, the infection moves. Desmond understood. So the pain is basically a map. Exactly. Salith looked at Corwin. You would rather let him suffer? Corwin's expression became serious. No. He knelt beside the patient. I want the pain to tell us how to save him. For the next hour, Corwin watched the man's nervous system. Every spike gave them another piece of information. The infection was moving along specific nerve pathways. It wasn't attacking randomly. It was searching. What is it searching for? Salith asked. Corwin looked at the scans. The spinal cord. Why? Because it wants access to the brain. Salith's eyes widened. If it reaches the central system, every patient will die. Corwin nodded. Then we stop it before it gets there. He opened his medical bag. Salith watched him remove several basic tools. You don't have advanced equipment? No. You have a regenerative medical device? No. You have a neural scanner? No. Then what do you have? Corwin held up a small metal box. An old nerve stimulator. Salith looked disappointed. That primitive device. Very primitive. He connected it to the patient's arm. Then he activated it. The patient's pain suddenly increased. Salith stepped forward. What are you doing? Finding the infection. The patient screamed. Corwin did not look away. He watched the monitor. A cluster of abnormal signals appeared. There. Salith moved closer. What is that? The infection. Corwin adjusted the device. The signal changed. Then the patient stopped screaming. His heart rate stabilized. Salith stared. You found it? No. Corwin looked toward the ceiling. I found where it hides. A strange sound came through the ventilation system. Everyone stopped. A soft clicking noise. Then another. Desmond looked up. That isn't the air system. Corwin raised his weapon. Something moved inside the vent. Salith stepped backward. A black creature dropped from the ceiling. It was small, almost insect-like, but its body was covered in glowing nerve tissue. Corwin fired. The creature exploded against the wall. Salith stared at it. What is that? Corwin walked closer. Not a virus. Desmond looked at him. Then what? Corwin studied the creature. A parasite. Salith shook her head. No organism could control an entire colony from inside the ventilation system. Corwin pointed at the creature. This one can. Then the colony speakers turned on. A voice filled the room. Human. Everyone froze. Corwin looked toward the speaker. Who are you? We have studied your species. Corwin frowned. That's creepy. The voice continued. You survive injury. Yes. You tolerate pain. Sometimes. You adapt to hostile environments. Usually. The voice became colder. You are therefore the ideal host. Corwin's face changed. Host for what? Every ventilation grate opened. Hundreds of glowing parasites crawled into the room. Salith screamed. Corwin raised his weapon. Everybody behind me! The parasites rushed forward. Corwin fired. Desmond grabbed a medical torch. Salith activated every defense system in the room. But there were too many. One parasite jumped toward Corwin. He caught it. Its body burned against his glove. It released a burst of pain through his arm. Corwin gritted his teeth. Then he noticed something. The parasite was reacting to his pain. Not feeding on it. Learning from it. Corwin suddenly smiled. That's it. Desmond looked at him. What? They don't understand humans. Salith frowned. What does that mean? Corwin looked at the creatures surrounding them. They think pain makes us weaker. He tightened his grip. They don't know humans learn to use pain as information. Corwin looked at Salith. Can you amplify the neural signals? Yes. Good. Desmond understood immediately. You want to overload them. Corwin nodded. Let's teach them something. Salith connected the medical systems. The entire colony began to hum. Every neural sensor activated. The parasites screamed. Their bodies began glowing. Corwin shouted. Now! Salith triggered the system. A massive wave of neural energy exploded through the colony. The parasites collapsed. One after another. The survivors fell silent. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then the colony doors unlocked. But Corwin's scanner suddenly began beeping. Salith looked at him. What is it? Corwin stared at the reading. There is one more. Where? He slowly looked toward the command center. The main computer. And suddenly, every screen in the colony displayed the same message. We have learned. The message disappeared. Then the lights went out. Salith whispered, What did we just awaken? Corwin looked at the command center. Something that learns faster than we do. Desmond raised his weapon. That's not encouraging. Corwin smiled. Didn't say it was. They entered the control room. The colony's central computer was surrounded by black biological material. It had grown across the walls, across the floor, across the main reactor. Salith scanned it. This is not a parasite. Corwin shook his head. No. The computer suddenly spoke. You are different. Corwin stepped forward. From what? Every species I have studied. The creature continued. Other species fear pain. Yes. Other species eliminate pain. Yes. Other species become weaker when injured. Corwin looked at the infected system. Sometimes. But humans. The computer paused. You learn. Corwin's smile disappeared. The creature had understood. It had studied them. It had copied their biology. It had learned their medical methods. Now it wanted their greatest advantage. Adaptation. The computer activated the colony's weapons. Desmond looked outside. Ships were arriving. Not rescue ships. Thousands of small parasite vessels. Salith stared at the sky. It has spread. Corwin nodded. Then we don't have much time. What do we do? She asked. Corwin looked at the medical scanners. Teach it the wrong lesson. Salith frowned. How? Corwin pointed at the medical bay. Humans survive because we adapt. Yes. But adaptation takes time. He looked at Desmond. We give it something it cannot predict. They gathered every medical tool they had. Regeneration systems. Neural stimulators. Pain blockers. Old human equipment. Alien technology. Everything. Then Corwin connected them together. Salith stared at the machine. This is extremely dangerous. Corwin nodded. That's why it might work. They activated the system. The parasite intelligence copied the signal. Exactly as Corwin expected. It believed the humans were trying to destroy it. So it adapted. It changed its biology. It changed its neural structure. It became immune. Corwin smiled. Got you. Salith understood. You wanted it to adapt. Yes. Why? Because every time it adapts, it uses energy. The reactor began screaming. Corwin watched the power levels. Keep going. Desmond looked worried. We're draining the entire station. Keep going. The parasite changed again. The power level dropped. Again. And again. Finally, the creature could not adapt anymore. Its biological network collapsed. Every parasite ship in orbit went dark. Silence returned to the colony. Salith stared at Corwin. You defeated it with pain. Corwin shook his head. No. He looked at the survivors. We defeated it by understanding pain. Weeks later, the Varan outpost became one of the most important medical research centers in the galaxy. Alien doctors came from dozens of worlds. They wanted to study humans. Not because humans had the strongest bodies. They didn't. Not because humans had the best technology. They didn't. And not because humans were immune to pain. They weren't. The truth was much simpler. Humans had spent thousands of years getting hurt. They had broken bones. They had suffered burns. They had survived diseases. They had failed. They had lost. And every time they learned something. Salith eventually completed her research report. The first draft was only one sentence. Humans are medically strange. She deleted it. The second draft said, humans possess unusually high pain tolerance. She deleted that too. Finally, she wrote, humanity does not worship pain. Humanity does not seek pain. Humanity simply refuses to waste it. She submitted the report. Months later, the Galactic Medical Council changed its official classification of humans. They were no longer listed as a medically unusual species. They were listed under a new category. Adaptive survivors. Corwin read the report and laughed. Sounds fancy. Salith smiled. You deserve it. No. Corwin looked at the old scar on his arm. We just learned something. What? He pointed at the scar. Pain tells you something happened. Then he looked toward the stars. Survival tells you what you do next. Salith nodded. And from that day forward, alien doctors stopped asking why humans tolerated pain. They started asking the more important question. What could humanity become after surviving another 1,000 years? No one knew the answer. But across the galaxy, one thing had become certain. If humans fell, they would get back up. If they failed, they would learn. And if something tried to break them, it had better be prepared for what came next. Because humanity's greatest medical secret was never whiskey. It was never advanced technology. It was never pain tolerance. It was the simple human habit of turning every wound into a lesson. And that was the lesson the galaxy would never forget. If you enjoyed this HFY story, subscribe to HFY Story Hub for more original human resilience, alien encounters, and epic science fiction stories.